Hello and welcome to another action-packed Met Office 10-day trend. Again, there's going to be an awful lot going on over the next week or so. By the end of the 10 days, we're into spring. However you measure it, we're going beyond the equinox. But if you think that means spring is about to arrive, think again. You may well be aware that actually winter is set to make a return over the course of the next few days, particularly through the weekend. Cold air returns, very cold air as well. Nighttime, widespread frost, the risk of ice, and in places, yes, we will see some snow. But this cold spell doesn't look like it'll be as long-lived as the last cold spell. It doesn't look like the snow will be as widespread either, and the cold will slowly ease as we go into next week. But we do have to focus in on that cold spell on its way. Let's take a look at the big picture. Low pressure actually in charge at the moment, and winds coming up from the south, bringing a blustery day on Wednesday, and this weather front bringing some quite heavy rain as it slowly moves its way northwards. It then kind of grinds to a halt on Thursday, bringing pretty soggy conditions across much of eastern England, parts of southern Scotland. And ahead of it, with the winds coming in from the North Sea, it'll be pretty chilly on these North Sea coasts. Whereas behind it, a bit of sunshine, temperatures on Thursday could get close to the teens, but there will be some heavy showers around too. Now that weather front becomes more interesting through Friday. It lingers across the east, so again another wet day for eastern England, parts of eastern Scotland, but it starts also to turn increasingly cold. And as the cold air mixes with that weather front, well, we could start through Friday to see some problems with snow and ice. Initially over the hills of eastern Scotland, but on Friday night, increasingly across parts of eastern England, we could see further problems with wintry weather arriving. And then, well, things change more dramatically into the weekend. A big area of high pressure across Scandinavia starts to dominate. The isobars squidge together. We know what that means. It means the winds will be strengthening. And again, they'll start to come in, like they did a few weeks ago, from the east. And that means the air will be coming down from Siberia or beyond, even from the Arctic. And this cold air sweeping in across the UK as we go into Saturday becomes even more widespread. The whole map pretty much turning dark blue by Sunday. These will be the typical temperatures on Sunday, struggling to get above freezing in places. Notice the coldest conditions for England and Wales, perhaps not quite as cold across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But that's the actual temperatures on the thermometer. Add on a bitter easterly wind, again most notable across the south, and it will feel well below freezing. So what do we know about this cold spell? It's arriving as we go into the weekend. Temperatures dropping away, bitter winds, hard frosts. Big question, will we see snowfall? Well, when we get air this cold, like we did a few weeks ago, anything that falls out of the sky is likely to be snow. So yes, we are going to see some. But as I mentioned at the start, this snow isn't likely to be as widespread as what we saw at the start of March. But there's still the potential for some. So let's deal with where we might likely to see some snowfall. This is the pressure pattern as we go into Sunday. That area of high pressure moving from Scandinavia and sitting across the UK. Now, when we get high pressure across the UK, it usually means dry weather. And for many, it will be dry and fine, but not for all. There's a little complication because the high doesn't completely dominate. Just down to the south across the Mediterranean, there's an area of low pressure. And where these isobars are close together, well, that's the biggest area of uncertainty. With these isobars squeezing together, the winds coming in from the North Sea, picking up some moisture here, means that the area at the moment most likely to see snow is across parts of East Anglia and the southeast. Now, I say most likely, we say disruption possible. This is a number of days away. So it is just the potential at this stage, and you should stay tuned to the forecast. We'll obviously be fine-tuning the warnings over the next few days. I'm going to show you now why there's some uncertainty, and it really is just subtle differences. This is one of the computer solutions as we go into the weekend. There's the area of high pressure. You can see just about there to the north of the UK, and there's that low pressure system near Italy. Now, in this scenario, notice how straight the isobars are coming down across the northwest of Europe towards the UK. And you'll notice that it's dry, largely dry across the UK. The blue splodges, that's the wet weather, the rain and the snow. Not much of that across the UK because the isobars are quite straight. Here's another scenario for the same time period, a different computer model. Again, it's a similar picture, high pressure to the north of the UK, low pressure close by Italy, but just a subtle bend in those isobars is making all the difference. We say this increased cyclonicity means there's a greater chance of seeing some wet weather. And as I said, the air is so cold that anything in terms of wet weather will be snow. So the greatest risk close to where those isobars are, and just that subtle difference in the bend in the isobars means, well, that's why there's such uncertainty about the snowfall. However, there is the potential for some snowfall, so please stay tuned to the forecast, especially as we get closer to the weekend. And beyond the weekend, what's going to happen? Well, one of the reasons it's been so cold recently is because the jet stream has been well to the south of the UK, and that's how we go into next week. A slow-moving, sluggish jet stream close to the UK. But subtle signs of changing through the first part of next week, something, well, at least vaguely similar to what we'd expect, with a jet stream trying to come back in and influence things from the Atlantic. By no means a raging jet stream across the UK, but it is a subtle change. And that will allow the cold air that arrives this weekend to slowly get pushed away. And I do mean slowly. It'll still be pretty cold on Monday and Tuesday, but gradually more of an Atlantic influence means the air will turn, well, just a little bit milder as we go into next week. So the cold will slowly start to ease. With more of that Atlantic influence, we will start to see some wetter weather, particularly in northern and western areas, but only probably for a time. The weather patterns are changing, and in terms of spring warmth, well, the cold air is never too far away, so it looks like any spring warmth is definitely on hold well into next week, even beyond the equinox. There's plenty going on, as I said. There are warnings in force already, and please keep up to date with those warnings. As I said, they'll be more fine-tuned as we get closer to the time. You can keep up with them on the Met Office website, or of course download our app, and you can take the weather with you wherever you are.